Okay, friends, Kurt Klapier here with teachmomhow.com. This is a website that I created initially to teach people how to do things technical, like make videos and things like that. Yeah, it's not just for moms, but the idea behind it came because I was tired of teaching my mom and getting frustrated with teaching my mom how to use all these technical things as new gadgets came out and stuff like that. And that's where the idea came. But we're now branching out to other categories that I'm not so qualified to teach. Like today we're going to be talking about autism. I don't know anything about that. So I've invited a guest on the line, a girl I went to high school with and probably haven't talked to since high school, actually, Liz.
I don't think we have.
Yeah, other than maybe a few Facebook comments here and there, right?
Yeah.
So Liz Odell, Liz Pingree Odell is what we knew her as, was Liz Pingree, but Liz Odell has a son with autism. He's been diagnosed for about 2 years now. And so she's going to talk to us a little bit about what you can expect as a parent with an autistic child if you're somebody just getting the news about this, what you can expect and kind of her mindset, things she's learned through the process that might help you and your child and different things like that. Or maybe you're a teacher like myself. This is a subject that I'm curious about because I work with students. I'm a high school teacher. And at least once a year, if not more, I'll have a kid in the class with autism or something to that effect. And so it's good information for teachers. Anyone who works with people with special needs, this is good information. So we're just going to jump right into this. Now, Liz, tell us about, well, first off, answer this question in your own words. What is autism?
Autism is a behavioral / mental disorder of different types. It's now become a spectrum disorder because there's so many different kinds of autism. There's types that are more severe, and then there's less severe. There's different varieties. It's just a very broad category of a kid that looks completely normal and can sometimes act completely normal, but something just doesn't click right upstairs is how I've come to decide it.
Gotcha. I understand. Yeah, and my experience with kids with autism, I've been around a few. When my wife and I were first married, a lady in our ward had 2 or 3 kids with autism, and that was probably my first exposure. Well, it was my first close exposure to autism. And then since becoming a teacher, I've worked with a few kids with autism and Asperger's and things, and I've noticed that they're all completely different. Has that been your experience?
Yes, in fact, kind of my introduction to the disorder, my oldest nephew on my side was diagnosed with autism when he was about 8 or 9. And so just watching him grow up, he's now 21, and just kind of seeing him, that was my first exposure to it. And so that was helpful to me to, have known him for a while in going about it with my own kid. And then I am a substitute teacher, and so I've seen it a lot at schools as well.
So now this question is a little bit controversial, I know, but I want to know your opinion. There's the endless debate about whether autism just happens or whether it's caused by environmental things like vaccines and things like that. What's your opinion on that?
I do not think vaccines cause it. I don't think it's environmental. I think it's just something somebody is born with, just like Down syndrome or any other disability that some kids are born with, like a heart defect even. I think that's something they're just born with. It just happens to be more displayed, especially as a child grows up and they start becoming social or start going through their, learning to talk. And that's about the time that they start doing the vaccines majorly. And that's why it was always thought that vaccines caused it, is because that's when kids really start to speak and become more social. And when a kid starts shutting down socially and can't speak or doesn't go through the normal developmental stages, they think, well, hey, it was a vaccine that caused it because that's the most recent thing that has happened. But I don't think vaccines caused it at all.
So if I'm understanding you right, the reason people tend to wonder, or there's the debate about whether it was caused by something in the environment versus the child was born with this disorder, is because the what's the word, the traits, the traits, I guess, of autism don't show up immediately like with Down syndrome or another what's the word, another disorder. Is that accurate?
Exactly.
So they're a few years old, typically, at least 4, you told me, right?
3 or 4, yeah.
Before you start noticing them. When with your child did you first start noticing that there was something going on different?
His speech was a little delayed. He hit all the other milestones right on the button, which some autistic kids it's delayed. But for my child, he hit all the developmental stages right on the nose, except for speech, and that was delayed. But then he was always really wild as a kid. I just couldn't get him to calm down or anything, no matter what I did. And my sister-in-law actually noticed it earlier because she had studied autism so much with her son and told me, hey, this is not a normal kid, because it was my first child. I didn't know any better. You know, hey, there's something going on. Go start looking into this. And so he was just really wild and his speech wasn't right on. And so that was my first clue.
Are there any, because autism, it's a whole spectrum, there's different severities and different things, but are there any traits that are kind of, for the most part, across the board that most, if not all, autistic kids have?
Some of them, they usually present with several things as well. Like my son is autistic/ADHD. So usually they'll present with ADHD first, or, sorry.
No worries, good tune.
Go away. Okay. So it's usually there's the severe ones are really easy to diagnose. They can't talk. They don't look you in the eye is a big one. They have a really hard time looking you in the eye. Social aspects are really difficult. That's the only thing that I can pinpoint. Otherwise, there's a lot of give and take. Some are really intelligent, some are not. It all just depends on the kid.
If a parent is suspicious that their child might have autism or is demonstrating some of the behaviors of autism, what would you suggest, or what advice would you give the parent at that point?
Look into it. Start looking into some of the symptoms. They're all listed online places. Probably WebMD would even have something, but just look into it and see if your child presents with any of the things. And if you suspect it at all, go to a children's hospital or something like that and get them tested for it. It's worth it in the long run to know or to not know. In my case, I suspected when he was 4, but I took him I live in a small town of like 15,000 people. And so I just took him to a local psychiatrist that did what they told me was an autism test, but it wasn't. And they're like, oh no, it's not autism. It's just ADHD. He's 4, just give him a couple pills and he'll be fine. And nevertheless, I didn't go see that doctor again. And then I eventually decided that ADHD was probably helpful, and so we got him some medication, but I'm like, there's still something up. So we went and did testing at a hospital in Omaha, which was 4 hours away. And when we did that, we really discovered that it was definitely autism.
How do they test for autism? What's the process?
they will talk to you and ask kind of what they like, what they don't like, just some things like that, how they behave in public. And then they do little tests like, will the child seek you out in play? Like if they, if you give them a bunch of toys, will they just start playing with them? In my case, my son was just like, I don't know what this is. He didn't even initiate imaginative play by himself. And then if he starts playing with something and you're playing, will he try and involve you? And he didn't. If you start playing with him, will he play with you? And he would. Also, if they give him kind of a speech test, speech is usually a big factor in autism. Fine motor skills is difficult for autism, and they do tests with fine motor skills. Let's see here. They, just ask questions and worked with him, and they also asked him.
Chase, I'm recording a video. You need to go away.
They also asked him things like, if you were having dinner on a boat, what would you have? And he couldn't figure out what he would have because he's never been on a boat. And just using their imagination is difficult for them if they've never experienced it before.
Now you told me before that you pretty much started realizing that he had autism at 4 years old, right? When he was 4?
Yeah.
And then he wasn't officially diagnosed until 8 years old. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you, what did you go through during those 4 years? What was your mindset? What kind of emotions did you experience? What were you thinking as you began learning that this was going to be a different experience than your average experience as a parent? What did you find out?
I just kind of, my husband didn't want to believe it until he was 8, until I went and got him officially diagnosed. So he had a harder time accepting the fact that he wasn't going to have a normal boy who wanted to go out and throw the football around.
You just froze. Are you still there, Liz?
Be able to,
Liz, you froze for a second. Oh. So let's just back up to where you said that your husband had a little bit harder time with it because he wanted to have that normal experience of throwing a football with your child. Let's pick up right there. Go ahead.
Yeah, he wanted to have, he knew he wouldn't, with the autism diagnosis, he figured out, hey, my kid's not like other boys. He's not going to want to throw the football around or, do sports, that kind of thing. He's going to have very specific interests, and if I don't find my way into those interests, I won't have a relationship with him. He may not grow up to be as independent as most kids grow up to be. There may come a point where his sister surpasses him emotionally and socially, and just kind of had to accept the realization that he wasn't going to have the normal life that you would predict for a child when they are first born. And for me, it was more of okay, well, I've got this, now what's the next step? And let's just go from there.
Liz, you froze. You froze one more time. But you're saying that your experience was a little different. You just thought about it. What do we do next now that we know this, and so on?
Yes, and just take it one step at a time. And this may be different, but that's okay because parenthood always throws new kinks at you, I've discovered.
I'm guessing that's a pretty normal reaction, what you said your husband went through with being overwhelmed. Like, this is not going to be, and I don't know if it's rude to say this, but this isn't going to be a normal experience, or at least how we picture it. And so that's probably pretty normal to think like that. Well, what's it going to be like when the other kids pass him up developmentally? What's it going to be like if I want to play football or something with them? How do I be involved with this child's life? So I want to ask, do you guys have any tips for parents that might be dealing with those emotions as they're discovering autism in their children?
Yes. Accept your child for what they give you, and find even though a child may be different than other, find their uniqueness and embrace it. And once you've embraced it, just go from there. Because once you found what's unique about them, you can start to love that part of them and just help them along the way. Fight for what you think your child deserves. Especially like in my son's case, nobody believed that he was autistic because he's mostly normal. So I've had to fight a lot, the schools, to get him help and to get people to accept him. Just love your child and just take on what's different about them. Learn as much as you can about what makes them, about their disorder, whether it be autism or Down syndrome or even a heart defect, and learn as much as you can about it so you can help them as new struggles come along.
I'll ask you these last two questions up front so you can think about them, but I want to hear your funniest experience that you're comfortable sharing with your child. Something that happened funny that may not happen to someone who doesn't have a child with autism. And if you're comfortable sharing it, one of your most challenging or traumatic experiences with this. Are you willing to share those two stories?
Yes.
Okay. Do you need a minute to think about them?
I've got one that kind of embraces both.
Okay.
Right after I had my daughter, my son was about 3.5, 4 years old, and I had put my daughter down for a nap in our bedroom, and I went to go take a shower, and I knew my child was an escape artist. Autistic kids usually are. And I had done everything in my power to lock the front door. I had deadbolted it, I had locked the doorknob, and I had put our heavy-duty stroller in front of the door just so I could take a shower. And I got out of the shower, the stroller was moved, the front door is wide open, and he's gone. And I'm just, completely naked. I have to get clothes on to go outside and find him. And so I just grabbed a bathrobe because he's only 3, and I'm just panicking as to where he would have gone because he can go pretty far. And I ran upstairs to my neighbor because I was living in an apartment. And I just said, hey, I need your help finding him. And he had walked all the way down the block. He was headed to the park by himself because we had walked to the park a few times to play. And he had just headed there on his own because he wanted to go to the park and didn't understand that he couldn't go there by himself. And so that was terrifying. And we found him because we just kind of figured, well, where would he go? He's only going to go places that are familiar. And he hadn't gone too far because he had little legs, but he had no idea that he had gotten lost or anything. And so we brought him home, and we had to install one of those locks at the top to shut the door so he couldn't reach, and he still would try and maneuver his way outside whenever he could. But that was my interesting, most memorable.
Yeah, that's one of those that's scary then, funny now.
Yes.
Cry then, laugh later stories.
Yes.
You should make a book of cry now, laugh later stories.
Yes.
All right, Liz. Well, thank you for your time. I think this has been helpful to some parents. And is there any website? I know there's lots of websites. Google, find all kinds of things on autism. Is there a site or two that you recommend for information and help about autism?
If you just Google anything on autism, you usually find like a medical resource. I ended up doing for my career, I had to go back and do some more research on like classes and that kind of thing. And I took a class on autism, and that was most interesting to me to learn about that. Usually each state has an autism website that you can go to. Parent portals are helpful where you can get together and talk with other parents who've got autistic children. Our school district ended up putting on an autism fair one year where they had classes on it. And that was helpful for us as parents to go, well, here's this challenge. What do we do now? We could ask questions, and they were able to give us helps and that kind of thing.
Cool. Well, thank you, Liz. And thank you for all those that listen to this podcast. Again, I'm Kurt Clapier with TeachMomHow.com. We'll be bringing you more podcasts, and we'll be bringing you more information about how to, not just with autism, but how to work with kids with all different sorts of special needs and things of that nature. So thanks for watching. I like to always give something of value to people that watch our videos. So if you'll go to the link that's here on the video, I'll post a link, and there's also in the description. Or if you'll go to freebrush.teachmomhow.com, that's freebrush.teachmomhow.com. I have some information there where you can get a free makeup brush. I don't use them, but my wife loves them. Anyways, you can get a free makeup brush there from us. Go to freebrush.teachmomhow.com and check that out. Liz, again, thanks for your time. Is there anything else you want to say before we go?
No.
No. All right, you've been great, and have a great day, okay?
Okay, see ya.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, this is Katie Franks with the ABA, and you've never seen a brush like this before, and we're gonna give this to you 100% free. Ordinary brushes have anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 bristles, but the Miyoko has over 22,000 mink soft bristles, so any powder makeup or liquid makeup goes on flawless. Watch this example. On the left is the Miyoko. On the right is an ordinary brush. Just look at how much better the Miyoko covers and how much smoother the coverage is. And you can only do that with 22,000 bristles. Watch as I use it to apply my own makeup. We know that when you try the Miyoko, you'll never go back to ordinary brushes, so we're gonna give it to you absolutely free. The secret is in the split hair bristles, because each one is just 1/4 the thickness of actual human hair. It's literally the softest thing you've ever felt. So today, it's our gift to you from Miyoko and the American Beauty Association. This is a very exclusive promotion, and supplies are limited. All we ask is that you cover the postage, and we'll ship your brushes right away. It's that simple. Just click the button below to claim your free Miyoko brush now.